Welcome to Top 10 Archive. As we continue our journey into the world of mythology, we stop to take a look at one of our all-time favorites, the Norse. Warrior Vikings and endless battles before the Feast of Valhalla. So grab some mead and swill it down while we journey through the tales of the Northmen. Number 10, Gulen Bursty. Meaning golden mane or golden bristles, Gulen Bursty was a boar gifted to the god Freyr by Eritrea, after his brother Brokkr and Loki made a wager claiming the brothers couldn't make items to match the quality of gifts Loki had bestowed onto Freyr, Thor, and Odin. Taking the wager, the brothers would go on to create Fafnir, the golden ring for Odin, Mjolnir, the famed hammer of Thor, and lastly, Gulen Bursty, the golden bear for Freyr. To make such a gift as the latter, Atri used pigskin and gold in the furnace, as Brokkr worked the bellows. Together, they would create the boar Gulen Bursty, which had a glorious mane that glowed in the dark. The brothers won the bet, and Loki almost lost his head. Aside from being made from gold, Gulen Bursty was said to be able to traverse any terrain, including traveling over oceans and even fly. According to ancient tales, Freyr rode Gulen Bursty to attend Baldur's funeral. Number 9, Ratatoskr. Ratatoskr is a squirrel who runs up and down Yggdrasil, the world tree, delivering messages between the eagle perched atop Yggdrasil and the worm Níðhöggr, who dwelt beneath one of the tree's 3 roots. Sometimes called drill-tooth or boar-tooth, Ratatoskr's name contains 2 fundamental parts, Rata and Toskr. Rata meaning the traveler and Toskr meaning tusk. According to Rudolf Simek, the squirrel probably only represents an embellishing detail to the mythological picture of the world ash in Grimnismal. Ratatoskr is described in the prose Edda's Gylfaginnings, chapter 16, in which High, of High, just as High, and Third, pseudonyms used by Odin, in which he states that an eagle sits at the top of the ash, and it has knowledge of many things. Between its eyes sits the hawk called Fenrir. The squirrel called Ratatoskr runs up and down the ash. He tells slanderous gossip, provoking the eagle and Níðhöggr. Number 8, Huginn and Munen. 2 ravens, Huginn meaning thought, and Munen meaning memory or mind, are the pair of ravens that fly across the 9 realms, bringing information and delivering messages to and from the Allfather, Odin, and are just 2 of his many sources of prodigious wisdom. Both ravens, while semi-autonomous, are still projections and manifestations of Odin's own being. To the exact extent, or to ask what part of his being they derive from, is speculation, but is considered to be that of his mental states, hence the derivative of their names. In a brilliantly poetic manner, Odin himself speaks of his sleeping mind by referencing his ravens. The Eddic poem Grimnismal describes it as such. Huginn and Munnen fly every day over all the world. I worry for Huginn that he might not return, but I worry more for Munnen. Number 7, Auðumbla. During the forging of the worlds, 2 primordial creatures were spawned from the key fields in Niflheim, Ymir, the frost giant, and Auðumbla, the giant calf. Both sprung forth from the melting ice in Ginnungagap, the void between Niflheim and Muspelheim. Saving Ymir from starvation, Auðumbla would allow him to drink from her teat, while she herself fed from the blocks of salty ice, as there was no foliage to eat. As she continued to eat, some strange happenings would occur beneath the ice. First, locks of hair would emerge on the first day, followed by an entire head on the second, and lastly, on the 3rd day, the rest of the body would emerge, belonging to that of the first god, Buri, father of Odin. Number 6, Níðhöggr. Níðhöggr, living within Nástrand, or the corpse shore of hell, in the roots of the world tree Yggdrasil that stretched therein, Níðhöggr would gnaw at the roots and corpses therein. It is believed that the root was placed over Níðhöggr to trap it beneath the world. During Ragnarok, or the end times, when Yggdrasil is to be shaken apart, Níðhöggr will leave its prison underneath the tree to take its place over the battlefield to feast upon and consume the corpses of fallen warriors. Number 5, Surtur. Surtur, meaning black in Old Norse, was a Jotun, sometimes called the Devil Giant, and the demon ruler of Muspelheim, the land of fire. Prior to the years of Ymir and Auðumbla, Surtur is foretold as being a major figure during the events of Ragnarok, forging his deadly fire sword, able to strike down the gods. Additional information is given pertaining to Surtur in a book from Prose Edda, stating that he is stationed guarding the frontier of the fiery realm Muspelheim, that he will lead Muspelheim's sons to Ragnarok, and he will fall the god Freyr in battle. Number 4. Fafnir. Son of the dwarf king Hreidmar and brother of Regin, Fafnir was said to have a powerful arm and fearless soul. He was guardian of his father's house of glittering gold and flashing gems, as well as the strongest and most aggressive of the three brothers. He would later be cursed by the Anveri's ring due to the trickery of Loki. When Odin, Loki, and Hoenir were traveling, they came across Otter, who during the day took the form of a regular otter. Killing the otter with a stone, they would skin their catch before coming across Hreidmar's dwelling, and were pleased to show off their new pet. Recognizing their brother, the Dwarf King and his remaining sons captured the gods and held them until Loki could gather their ransom, to stuff the otter's skin with gold and cover its fur with red gold. Loki would go about fulfilling this task with the cursed treasure of Anveri, as well as the ring. The gold's curse would grasp Fafnir firmly as he killed his father to secure all the gold for himself. Becoming violent, greedy, and hostile in nature, he departed into the wilderness to hide his fortune, turning into a serpent or dragon, or the symbol of greed, to guard his treasure. He would be later slain by the hero of legend, Sigurd. Number 3. Ymir. Ymir is a primeval being born of primordial elemental poison and forefather to all Jotun, or frost giants. Taken together, several stanzas from 4 poems collected in the Poetic Edda refer to Ymir as a primeval being who was born from the venom dripped by the icy rivers of Ylivigard and lived in the grassless void of Ginnungagap. Ymir birthed a male and female from the pits of his arms, and his legs together began a 6-headed being. Ymir would meet his end by the hands of Odin and his 2 siblings, as they feared how fast the frost giant multiplied. Waiting for Ymir to rest, Odin and Ken would make their moves against him. A hard-fought battle ensued, the result being the creation of the world from the pieces of Ymir's corpse. Out of his flesh, the earth was fashioned. From his bones, the mountains. The frost giant's skull filled the sky as his blood would pool to create the oceans. Number 2. Jörmungandr. Known as the Midgard Serpent, he was said to be so massive in size that he could coil his entire body around the planet. Harboring an insatiable appetite, Jörmungandr would consume everything in sight to increase his size. That is, until Odin stopped him by forcing his tail into his mouth. Thor would have 3 encounters with the beast, the last of which prophesied that the 2 of them would do great battle with one another during the time of Ragnarok. Thor would manage to slay the great serpent using his mighty hammer Mjolnir, after the serpent would rise from the ocean to spread his poison throughout the sky. Even though the great thunderer would overcome the fell beast, Thor would also meet his demise, falling over dead as he had walked just 9 short paces, having been poisoned by the serpent's venom during the battle. Number 1. Fenrir. As one of the sons of Loki, Fenrir was a massive wolf and wild creature, whom the gods knew would cause massive havoc during the time of Ragnarok. Odin would task Tyr to find a way to bind Fenrir. After 2 failed attempts with colossal cans, he would visit the dwarfs to see if they could fashion something stronger. Tyr would return with a rope of Gleipnir, or the Open One, forged from 6 impossible things to find: the sound of a cat's step, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain, the breath of a fish, spittle of a bird, and the sinews of a bear. Though just as thin as ribbon, Gleipnir was stronger than any iron chain. Tyr then challenged Fenrir to see if he could break free of the rope, to make sure it was no trick. Fenrir had Tyr place his hand inside his mouth. If he wasn't released, he would lose his hand. Tyr sacrificed his hand to bind the beast until the days of Ragnarok, where Fenrir would break free and devour Odin in one bite. Seeing his father consumed, Vidar would slay the giant wolf by using the greatest boot to stomp down the lower jaw of the wolf, while pushing against his upper jaw, causing enough force to rend the great beast's jaw, ending his terror. Do you have an idea for a future Top 10 video? Let us know in the comments section below. And be sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and our website, top10archive.net. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with all of your family and friends.